Hey, everybody, this is Tom Davis again, back with you for another interview. Actually, today, two of my favorite people that I've ever dealt with, baseball wise, Carmen Tarasi and Nick Tarasi. Nick being a young guy that's sporting a nice hairdo there on the one side, and Nick played baseball for me since he was in eighth grade at Shadyside Academy. Played for me for a few years there, and then, in summer in the travel league with Allegheny Tigers and Coach Tim Banner. Carm, little background on him. He a baseball guy. Has a good amount of knowledge, worked with his son and everything. And, we actually butted heads a few times on some philosophies and everything, but very, very good guy, very supportive of his son and everything. And what these guys are going to do is bring a parent, client, player perspective, into the recruiting process with working with me, with playing with me, and how their process went. And right now, Nick is the closer for Allegheny College. Have a lot of respect for him and the work that he's put in, and just from working with him and teaching him some stuff and working on the mental aspects of pitching. I always knew he was a pitcher when everything would come together, and I can finally say that now, big guy, you're not a thrower, you're a pitcher. You have an approach and an idea as to what you're trying to do when you take the mound. But getting it started, Carmen Tarasi, father of Nick, give a little background on meeting me, working with me, and what your thought process was.
Well, we met when Nick was a young man, and like a lot of fathers, I coached Nick when he was younger, and at a certain, you need to step back and allow your son or your daughter to play for the next level of coach, take them to places that you're not going to be able to take them. So Tom and I developed a relationship. I forget how we met in the first place, but I'm sure it was in conjunction with Shadyside Academy, where Nick went to high school, and you were involved in coaching. And that's how our relationship began. At the time, Nick was a shortstop. He wasn't pitching a lot. He had pitched. I had realized when Nick was at a younger age that he had quite a bit of talent as a baseball player, but possibly a middle infielder position, even though he was a very good middle infielder with his hands and his technique, might not be the best place for him as he moved up a few levels, because his foot speed was a little slow. Tom and another coach that he worked with realized that pitching might be better suited for Nick, and he started to go two ways. He was infield, he was pitching, and it really developed into something very good for him. In particular with Tom, he changed him as a pitcher. Nick has a very good curveball. He always had a very good curveball, but Tom taught him how to pitch instead of how to throw. And he also gave him the secret weapon, that I call it, is a very nasty changeup, which is the great equalizer pitch in baseball. So that's how Nick and Tom met, and Nick started to play for Tom, and in in some games with some very good baseball players, and he was able to progress as a baseball player in those situations with him.
Just jumping in here a little bit before I get to you there, Nikki. Yeah, a lot of it was recognizing some arm strength and the real competitiveness that Nick had. You know, some people really didn't see it, but I could tell from just looking in his eyes, in his face, you know, how much he loved to compete. And you know, I thought taking the mound and being in control of a game like a pitcher is and all that, you know, suited him real well, and we got him going. Nick always had a very good arm, and you know, his fastball, when we started working, he had natural movement. So, you know, we really didn't have to tinker with that. And he was able to command the plate with his fastball. And like you said, you know, he just has an affinity to where he had a very nasty breaking ball. And you know, something that he relied on maybe a little bit too much. And you know, as we go up in the age levels and everything like that, you know, and talking to him about the breakdown and the approach of hitting, hey, you got to be able to command all these pitches, know hitters, know their strengths and weaknesses and everything. And the one thing that Nick always was coachable. He was like a sponge. He would sit there and take in what you were teaching him. And you know, when he was younger, we stuck with the fastball and the curveball, and you know, we're getting people out, and he started having success on the mound and everything that way. But knowing and with my background and everything, I love to teach change-ups because, as I've told you guys, you know, your fastball, your curveball, your slider, you know, you're going to get those, you know, bad medium hitters out and everything, and you're going to get them. The very good hitters, when you get up and you're competing and you go to the next level, you have to have that change of speed and that same look fastball, something in that realm. And actually, Nick took to it very well. I mean, as far as you know, establishing his grip, being able to comprehend, you know, what we wanted out of it, the difference, you know, the difference in fastball speed, change-up speed and everything, and took to it, and it just took off. And I loved having him, after I left Shadyside, loved having him come throw for us with the Allegheny Tigers. And he pitched in some big ball games against some very good teams and got wins. And I think that's when we started getting into the recruiting process. You probably, Nick, you were in 10th grade, right?
Yeah, 10th or 11th grade, either my sophomore or junior year, give or take.
Yeah, I would think it was the summer of going in between, and you're like, hey, you know what? I was like, are you thinking about playing college baseball? And you said, yeah, you know what? I really think that I'd like it and everything like that. So, I mean, knowing his dad, I'm like, hey, you know what? I can do a lot for this kid um, with his recruiting process, get him out and try to get him into the right fits. And the whole thing about it, I mean, you know, I didn't tell Carm, okay, you know what, Nick can be a Division I pitcher. I mean, my basic premise to them was, you know what, he could go Division II, Division III. I mean, it's depending on what coaches are looking for, and there's going to be Division II schools that like him, Division III schools, you know, NAIA and stuff like that. But you know, It was like I do with most of my clients. I try to be honest. As I was talking with Coach Chester, and I've talked to the other coaches that I've been talking to in my interviews, it's about finding him that right fit, that place where he's going to do good, number one, academically, and number two, on the baseball field for his talents and all that. And just talk a little bit, Nick, about your progress coming up from that little eighth grade, 120-pound kid to how much do you weigh now, big guy?
I kind of vary from around 170 to 180.
To putting on that weight, you're 5'10", 5'11"?
I'm 5'11" now. Yeah.
Yeah. And, uh, talk about developing your body and how you went through being that eighth grader to where you are now, to where you're a very, very good closer in a very, very good Division III baseball league at Allegheny College.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like what my dad said. When I first started playing for you, I had just played infield. And it's not like I never pitched before. Growing up, here and there, I would pitch innings if we really needed them. But for the most part, like I probably in my life up to about like eighth grade, I probably had only pitched like 20 innings. But I had always known how to do it because obviously we just mess around in the yard and throw around, and I'd just like try to copy big leaguers and how they threw. And I really didn't start taking pitching like super seriously, I think, until my sophomore year of high school. My freshman year, I was on one of our JV teams, and one of the reasons I was the number one pitcher because I could just throw strikes, and that's how I only really thought of pitching. I kind of had my mind closed off that I was just going to play infield, and that's what I would do for the rest of high school. And then when sophomore year came around, like one of the main reasons I made the varsity team, we had a stacked lineup. One of the only reasons I made the team was because I could pitch, and I was primarily used as a pitcher. So a lot of those guys kind of took me under their wing, and I kind of realized that our two starting pitchers on that team that I'd been playing with since eighth grade were going to graduate, and we didn't have anybody else really to fill those shoes other than me and my teammate Tyler Gore. So that summer I kind of just started to learn how to pitch before I really just tried to throw strikes. I didn't really throw all that hard. And then I kind of just tried it out. Like, I'm going to try to throw the ball as hard as I can every single time. And just from my natural arm strength, I guess, I was able to touch like the low 80s going into my junior year. And it's kind of when it took off. I made the all-section team twice. Was the team MVP twice. Led the section wins like each year. And obviously playing with the Tigers in the summer was a bit different. The competition was a lot better, but I still felt like I held my own a lot. And obviously you taught me how to, work batters and counts. Could never shake you off, which was a good thing. Always had to, throw the pitches that you wanted. But you've been around the game long enough to know what hitters are going to hit and aren't going to hit. And I trusted you in that, and it worked out really well because, obviously we were a good team, and I was eventually able to start to get some schools to look at me, which was cool.
So going into the recruiting process and talking to you, as I said, this is Nick's niche and where he's going to fit in. And everything there, and then looking at schools, going through the process, and it was, Carmen, I had to sit there and tell which you're a pretty hands-on dad and like to get involved and talk about, we always talked about games afterwards and everything. And that, there'd be phone calls and you'd pick my brain and stuff. And, I'd ask you stuff, going through the process, you know, what what is it that you guys gained? I sent your information out, recommendations, and getting you contacts. What was it Carm first as a parent, and then Nick, that you were looking for in your school, in the school that you were going to attend?
Well, as a parent, I was looking for the school that was going to provide Nick the best education and to set him up for his profession after he attended that school. Really, as far as baseball went, I was leaving that up to Nick, because I was a little bit different than some of the parents. I have already played baseball, so it was his turn, and I didn't want to influence him that much on the game. I wanted him to be able to decide what he wanted to do and where he wanted to play. But from a parent perspective, I can tell you that you were a huge help, because the recruiting process changed quite a bit from when I was 18 years old. And there was a lot of things that were occurring that I didn't understand anymore. It changed that much. We're about the same age, so it was a little different. The coaches used to be able to just walk right up to you, and there were no restrictions on what they were going to say to you or tell you or whatnot. Well, there are now. And it was a different landscape for me as a parent. So I was sort of feeling my way around in the dark. And that's where you were able to help me understand, even from things that were as simple as form letters, money makers for schools that were doing, their camps or whatever they call them, tryouts, that were just simply money makers, to letters that were actual recruiting letters, because they looked the same until you really know how to weed your way through those. And you were a huge help with that at the beginning, and probably saved us a considerable amount of time and money weeding through what was a hot lead, I would call it, and what was just a feeler. So for me, that's what I was looking for during the beginning of the process, and that's how you helped me.
Nick, well, tell us what your major is. Have you had that major all the way through Allegheny? What you're hoping to do, and what your thought process was as far as schools. Yeah, you had Division II interest, Division III interest. Talk about what was going through your mind and stuff that we talked about.
Yeah, first and foremost, I wanted to go to school that was recruiting me that I thought was like the best academically, regardless of whether or not I thought that academic level would be too hard for me to cope with, just because in high school, Shady Side, it's a super good high school, and
super academic.
Yeah.
You're looking at 85% of people that graduate are heading to Ivy League schools, Bowdoin, MIT, everything like that. So the education that you receive there is phenomenal.
Yeah, and because of that, I knew I'd already been facing those academic challenges my whole entire life. So I pretty much figured anywhere where I'm going to go is not going to be anything like this. So regardless of the academic rigor, I knew that whichever school was held to like the highest esteem in that sense that I'd go to and I'd be able to succeed in. And in terms of like the whole process, I was just like obviously super thankful for you. You always stuck your neck out for me. And one thing that I knew I had to do as a result of that was obviously to be able to follow up on you sticking out your neck for me, because obviously you gave me that respect and I owed you that respect. And, you know, it'd always be crazy. I'd like maybe go to a Tigers game or practice or something, and there'd be someone new that was talking about me that you would talk to. And I'd always make sure to reach out. But at the end of the day, I found Allegheny, and I thought it would be a really good fit, and it has been. And super thankful for the last 3.5 years that I've been there. Obviously, this year a little bit different, but you know, I'm still obviously super happy.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up something in talking to the college coaches, and something that I talk to prospects, clients, their parents about all the time. And it's just the word communication. And it's probably, you know, the thing that influences businesses, life, everything, so much. And, you knew the good thing with you, Nick, is you did such a great thing of, okay, I get these people, and I'm getting you the contacts, and then I'm like, okay, big guy, you know what? A lot of it, they want to hear from you now. They're recruiting you, and you just constantly sitting there and realizing the importance and communicating, on a daily basis, and getting back to them, made your process go pretty well. I know Dad may not think so, because Division IIs, Division IIIs, I tell if you're sitting there looking to look for a commit going into your junior year or something like that, Division II, it's not going to be there. Those are, those are things that at Division IIs, and it goes to the trickle down effect. They're waiting to see who drops from people that were potential D1s and everything like that. So it goes out, but just, the constant communication. I can remember many calls with that. I'm like, have patience. Don't worry. Everything's going to work out. The right people are doing things and everything. And one of my favorite stories that I tell, because, so many people put down Division III athletics, or look down at it and think that it's, just not. They can think it's like JV-ish. And I was doing an interview with our president, Tim Ryerson, who Carmen knows better than Nick. But you know what? he was actually saying he was doing a big recruiting seminar, and he was like, okay, everybody here, you know what? Who wants to be a Division I athlete? And all the hands go up, and that, well, who's attended a Division I, athletic event? Hands go up and everything like that. And he's like, okay, who here's been to Division II games, Division III games, or NAIA games? And, couple little hands go up. And it was just really important. He goes, his message was, you got to go out and see some of those events, because like Tim and I were talking, and Jim Chester, who is at D1 Gardner Webb now, he got his start at Greater Allegheny. He played at Teal, and you know what? Just everything. He has such a high regard. When you go out, and if you actually go out and watch them play, the baseball's phenomenal. I mean, it is good no matter what the level and everything like that. It's just that so many people don't do their research into, how good it really is. And everybody, Nick's final two schools came down to a Division II school and Allegheny, and the Division II school, very good school. I send kids there, have players there and everything. But offered. I think Nick got what was like around 50% for everything, and Nick liked these two schools very well, but he liked Allegheny a little more, and I think that his heart was there a little more. And I can remember his dad calling me. He goes, "Tom, you know what? I really think that we're going to commit. Nick had that bad year academically his freshman year at Shadyside, and he's done everything to bring his grades up and do everything, and your test scores were good." But he goes, I haven't heard from Allegheny yet and everything. So I think that we're going to go. And I was like, remember that word patience, big guy. I said, talk to coach. I said, coach is going to make an offer. Division threes are, a little longer in getting out. But I said, coach really likes him. And I can remember about a week later getting the call and the excitement in your voice saying, that's unreal. How did you know this was going to happen? Because academic money and then other miscellaneous grants that come into it. You're going to Allegheny, which is a tremendous school, Nick, and plays very good baseball and everything, and you're getting a great education, and financially it took care of you to sit there and have that week patience and go to the school that you really wanted to go to for a lot better financial package. And your story is one that I share with everybody. Well, D3, NAIA. And I'm like, guys, you realize, Division II schools have nine scholarships that they can offer. Not, and just talking with Jim Chester and everybody, and he goes, you might be a little bit on the high side, but I'm like, 20% of D2 schools have the allotted scholarship money that they're allowed to have. Most of them, he said, he was talking about, you'll love this, Carm, when he was at Lock Haven, he had 1.8 scholarships to give. And he built his program from recruiting good players, the best players out of the Pittsburgh City League, because of the promise scholarships that the kids got coming from there, and that being great academic money and everything. And he got some players that should have been going elsewhere because of it, and was smart that way. So I just really think it was a great fit. I know that you've done well there. Had some arm problems and everything, back on track and everything. But I know that there's a lot of people that know about you. Because now you're a closer. With me, you were a starter. We might have brought you in, later in the game and all that, but you were a starting pitcher and everything like that, and you'd go out with me to the bullpen and you'd get the same talk every time, the same conversation that I give to everybody. Okay, number one, throw strikes, control the game. Nothing for free. Be that bulldog on the hill, and you then control the running game. You do that. Guess what? We're going to be in one and pick up that W. So you get all that to now. I'm looking at you now as a closer and all that. Talk a little bit, Nick, about how all that came through. I mean, because you started up there, as a starter and middle innings guy, and now you're their closer.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it was kind of out of a bit of fate, honestly. Obviously, like all I had done in high school was primarily start, and I went into Allegheny, and I thought that I'd have a good chance to start, just based off of like how hard I threw and how good my stuff was. And I kind of came to the realization that we had other guys who were better than me, which was like completely shocking to me. And my freshman year, I kind of like struggled with my confidence a bit and kind of getting adjusted and realizing that like everybody that we played in the NCAC was like really good, a lot better than I thought it was going to be, because I'd never really experienced like repetitive failure on the mound before, just given the fact that I'd only pitched for like 4 or 5 years prior to that. Like obviously I went through slumps through my career, like hitting and stuff, but I really didn't know how to deal with that pitching. And my sophomore year, it was a bit like the same inconsistency. And I finally got my first start, and I was wild. I couldn't throw strikes. I just wasn't like me on the mound. And our pitching coach at the time, Coach Victory, who was the one who recruited me, he never stopped believing in me, and he'd always put me out there. And we tweaked my mechanics up a lot. I went into like a closed. I stopped pitching from the windup and went more closed and dropped my arm down a little bit. And from that point on, I just struck everybody out. My stuff was a lot nastier, and I got my confidence back and was able to replace our closer who graduated when I was a sophomore, and pitched a lot of late inning games throughout our playoff run my sophomore year. And then last year, obviously, was the leader in the NCAC in saves before the season stopped, and I made the Division III Team of the Week, which was pretty cool. So hopefully we can obviously play this year. So, I mean, the goal is to never get a save. I mean, because I'd rather have my team win by 10 runs than have me come in with, like 3-2 game. Like I'd rather just see our hitters rake. But, when the time comes, like obviously I'm ready. I'm ready to do whatever. If they need me to start again, I'll start. Doesn't matter to me. Like I just want to win. So it's kind of always been my mentality about that.
I think that quality that you just threw out there on yourself without, anything. Hey, you know what? I'll go do whatever the team needs me to do, and everything like that speaks a lot about the quality young man you are. I know that because I know you. I've worked with you and seen you a long time, but just from somebody that's going to be looking at this is going to say, wow, you know what? Hey, here's a kid, he has very good, one of the best at his position. But if you need me to do this, you know what? I'm always there. And that's a big thing. It's a big thing. And, you talked a little bit about what I had told you. You're going to have, and I tell people this in every level they go, the game is all about adjustments, and it's the adjustments that you make, and you're getting there. And like you said, wow, well, this is a little bit different than what I thought, and everything like that. So, instead of going back to that thrower thing, the stuff that I was trying to teach you as far as the whole thing of pitching is, having command of all your pitches, throwing them in all counts, and being able to throw strikes with them, and just you're a guy that your stuff isn't strikeout stuff, but your mind is strikeout stuff because you set people up. You throw different pitches in different counts. And the other thing is, you don't really see balls get that hit that hard off you because you always have people off of balance. And that's what pitching is. I mean, I go back to it. Carmel Levis, Sandy Koufax. Pitching is disrupting hitters' timing, and that's all that it is. They're there to sit there and try to time you up, and you're there to sit there and take that away from them. And I think that that's one of the greatest things. I mean, you know, I've dealt with the kids like the Will Bednars that throw 96, 97 mile an hour, and you know, it's kind of easy to call pitches there in high school. I mean, you know, and I'm actually doing an interview with him and Andy and them tonight, and it's like, wow, Tom, what do you think we should call? And I'm like, just throw down number one. I mean, if they hit that, well then, you know, God bless. But then, you know, getting you, and I go back to a game and I, you know, travel around and I still see players that played in that game down in Bridgeport, West Virginia. And it was so funny. Bridgeport, very good West Virginia team. Have great players, well coached and all that. And it was so funny. We get down to the tournament and you're like, okay, am I going to go this first one? And I'm like, no, you have Bridgeport. And you're kind of looking at me and I said, you're tailor-made for them. I said, everything that they do is what I want your strength to sit there and take away. And we won that game 7-1. You had like 9, 10 Ks, one walk. You had people shaking their heads that day because, you know, that combination of being able to go out there and go out with your game plan and, you know, follow the pitches that I was called, but you being able to execute that game plan that you and I both had for that game was probably one of my fondest memories as far as watching a kid pitch and everything. Harm, you got anything to add in? I mean, you watched this whole process take place, and you know you were there watching, seeing stuff that I was doing with him, and everything like that. I mean, anything that you'd like to add in?
You know, the only thing I would say from a parent perspective, if there's any parents that are watching this that are working with you, there's a couple things that I really think you need to keep in mind. And you've touched on it a couple times that, you know, Nick was primarily being recruited D2, D3. He did have a couple calls from D1, and he went up to a few tryouts for them. And in fact, one of the tryouts was great. The coach didn't have to do what he did. He wrote Nick a letter after the tryout. He basically told him, because Nick pitched against his team that day, and he got the short straw of having to pitch to 3, 4, and 5 batters in the inning, and he struck 2 of them out, and he got a weak ground ball to the pitcher on the third one. The coach told him in the letter, you know, your curveball is better than every curveball we see. You just don't have the fastball to go with it. And so I would tell parents when you evaluate their player, it's not a criticism, it's an evaluation, and it's a different thing. As a parent, you need to listen to people who have been around the game for a long time, who have seen a lot of different players. They're simply giving you an evaluation that is going to help you and your child market themselves to the proper to a place where they can have success. That coach in D1, you know, basically told Nick, you can play for us, but basically, you know, these hitters up here, they're not going to hit your curveball, but they're smart enough to know not to swing at it. They're just going to wait for you to throw your fastball, which means you're going to throw once every 3 games to 2 batters, and then we got to get you out of there before they tune into what you're doing. So could he have gone D1 and played? Sure. But would he have played? No, he would have sat there and watched a bunch of other people play. Here, he is the best closer in his conference. he was one of the best closers in the country last year before they shut the season down. So you have to put yourself in a position where you can have success. So that's the one thing that I would give advice to parents that are working with you is to take your evaluation as an evaluation for what it is and not a criticism, and use it to your advantage.
Well, it's so funny. I mean, and you say that now, and I was actually talking. A lot of the coaches that I talked to, we were talking, who have been D3, D2, and everything like that. I would tell you right now, with your stuff right now and developing right now, and you're a senior, you could go and you could pitch against Division I teams and compete at right now, because your body's developed. You've developed your niche and everything and how you go about it. You got 4 pitches now, right? You actually throw that slider a little bit.
Yeah, I throw. It's interesting because my 2-seam is like 2 to 3 miles an hour slower than my 4-seam, but my 4-seam has way more action. But
you've always been weird in that way, big guy.
Yeah.
Believe me.
I have a 4-seam, 2-seam. I have a 12-6 curve. I have a slurve. The fastest I've thrown my slurve was like, I believe, like 78, which is like pretty hard for like a pitch that drops and sweeps. Kind of just developed that over time. And then obviously my changeup, which probably when it's on, it's pretty good, and then when it's off, it's obviously a better grip over the years. And before we went home for break, it was looking pretty nasty. So of course, obviously, that's like a 7 to 10 mile an hour difference from fastball, just like we molded it to be. So yeah, I mean, I've got a pretty solid arsenal, I feel like.
And that's what I'm saying. I mean, you go up, and number one, you'll disrupt timing, and that's what it's about. One funny thing, and you get there, and when you were playing, and me calling the pitches, I know there were times when you're like, 3-2. Why is he calling this changeup? Or 1-2. Man, I have these secondary pitches, and he's calling for this inside fastball, and that inside all at once. There's a guy that doesn't even swing and watches it, and you're walking off the mound. There's a lot that goes into it. I mean, I talk to people all the time about, call it. Why don't you let the catchers call the game? Well, 99% of catchers, I feel, are not ready. I've had some really good catchers, and in all seriousness, there are times that I'll let them take over. But the one thing is, I mean, it's so funny. I mean, and you can remember this, and probably remember seeing me snicker, is, they'll throw the ball back to you, and the guy's not even in the box, and they're looking over to see what you're going to call, and they're just looking and looking, and then they give you this, and I'm like, patience, let him get in the box. Let's see if he adjusted up in, whatever, and everything. And it's looking for stuff like that, and knowing the pitches that you've called already, and that just the type of hitter that they are. And my thing with having you for all this time, and I kept telling you, just try to think along my lines and everything, and that's going to get you to where you're going to know how to do it. And I'll tell you what, you've been phenomenal. I have a lot of respect for you, your dad, and everything that you've accomplished. And you can always come pitch for me any day of the week, and know that I don't know if you're going to be my closer and all that. I still like those high 90s guys, but I'm going to tell you what, you're going to get get to that closer with a lead. And the other thing is, if you get there and you're not and you're on a roll and all that, not going to need the closer. You're going to finish that game for me. That goes into another conversation altogether. But it was so good to talk to you guys, and I love doing stuff with players and clients that I had and their parents that can sit there and show some perspective on pitching, hitting, whatever you played and everything like that, and mostly on the recruiting process, for which I'm involved with it, so many people. So I thank you guys and appreciate all that we've done and still having this relationship to this day.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it too.
All right, guys.